Madam Chair, can you now hear me? I'm sorry, I was trying to talk earlier, and this is Owens.
Yeah,
Did
yes,
you,
we can. And I was
okay,
getting ready to recognize Mr. Owens of Utah. You have 5 minutes, sir.
thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for those that are testifying today. Let me just start off by saying I totally agree that in 1938, it was a racist act by the President Roosevelt to put in place what he did, not only there, in this area, but also Social Security. It's also a racist act for the Democrats to continue to support the Davis-Bacon Act, which keeps black business owners from starting businesses and hiring black employees. This is not about race. We have small business owners out there, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, every culture you can possibly think of, that are right now producing 50 million jobs in the private sector. It is not about race, it's about survival. It's taking a risk, making a profit, and then hiring people that you want to keep around and make sure they're feeling good in that environment. This would devastate the small business owners, no question about it. Let me remind everybody what's always been stated as a fact. It will, those that most at risk, predominantly my race, will not get a raise with this. They'll get fired. They get a pink slip. It's proven. It's seen. Every place has been shown. In Chicago, 8 years ago, 92% of black young boys were unemployed. A lot of it was because of the higher minimum wage that nobody wanted to hire them with. The other piece of this is the higher cost will bring a higher cost of the labor brings a higher cost of food. This impacts blacks, Hispanics, those at risk, citizens on a fixed income. So no, this is not something that would work. And I wish that members across the board that come in this position would try starting a business at some point before we start putting these type of regulations and dictates on those that are trying to survive in business. So that being said, Mr. DeCamp, can you elaborate on some of the reasons that Congress exempted the agriculture establishment from certain requirements of the FLSA when it was enacted in 1938? And what makes these workplaces unique from wages and the hourly wage perspective?
There's a few things about it. First is that the nature of the work tends to be a very short season and tends to involve very long hours during the day when that short season is happening. We're also talking about work that many of the workers in that space are migrant, and so they're moving from place to place. We're also talking about work where oftentimes the people that are doing this work are receiving housing and possibly food subsidy from the employer, certainly housing, sometimes food. And that affects the calculation of what even is the wage. And so that's another issue under the FLSA. I think the main issue with the FLSA and agricultural work is the necessary long hours. The purpose behind, or one of the key purposes behind the 40-hour work week under the FLSA is to encourage spreading of work in a time of high unemployment, so that if, you're moving work to more workers as opposed to fewer workers. And that makes sense when you want to spread the work around. But when the work requires the long hours, you've got to find the workers to do this. We're already talking about an economy where about half the work, at least according to the written testimony from the witnesses today, is being done by workers who are undocumented. This is already a workplace kind of in chaos, and a workforce that is kind of in chaos. And I think that's just a recognition of the fact that this work requires long hours, among other things. And it's also very difficult work. I mean, the statements that members have made and witnesses have made is absolutely right. It is very demanding work.
Okay, thank you so much. For those who do not really understand the fact that when a business owner has to pay more for the labor, they don't quite understand how that translates to impacting those of us who have to pay for those services. You stated that the Fairness of Farm Workers Act would likely result in higher food prices for consumers at grocery store and restaurants. Again, this impacts those at risk, like my race, more than anybody else out there. Can you help those who are listening to understand why this would be the case?
Sure. If a business is not able to spread the work around, so if you're a farm and you have workers and you're not able to hire 50% more workers and instead have to use the same workforce working the same long hours, now you would, under this bill, have to pay them overtime. So if you have to pay premium wages for the longer hours, your labor costs go up. If your labor costs go up, you're either going to be losing money or you have to raise your prices for what you sell, in order to not go out of business. If you raise your prices for what you sell, that then has ripple effects throughout the chain of distribution, so that the business that you sell the product to then has to charge a higher price when it is selling that food in a grocery store, in a restaurant, or wherever it may be.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Now you're back my time.